Have you, esteemed viewers, ever stumbled upon this particular video on the internet? Initially, I too found it hard to believe. It seemed as though the Grand Bridge in the footage was a mere fabrication, twisted and contorted beyond the reality. However, as I delved deeper into my investigation, I discovered a startling truth. This series of viral videos bore no trace of manipulation. What's more, this wasn't just any bridge. It was a brand new structure, barely a few months old since its grand opening. So, what exactly transpired during the conception, construction, operation, and ultimate demise of this ill-fated bridge? Today, let's recount the story of the Tacoma Narrows Bridge, a structure destined for a tragic end. How did it transform from a proud landmark into a devastating tragedy? A beacon of brilliance, the Tacoma Narrows Bridge, located in Washington State, USA, served as a vital link, connecting the city of Tacoma with the Kitsap Peninsula, spanning the Puget Sound. In the early 20th century, with the rapid economic growth along the US West Coast, the demand for transportation surged. The residents and business owners of the Tacoma area urgently needed a bridge to replace the slow ferry service, aiming to shorten commute times and boost regional economic development. In the 1930s, America was navigating its recovery from the Great Depression. Public works projects were championed as crucial tools for stimulating the economy. The construction of the Tacoma Narrows Bridge received federal funding and was regarded as a key infrastructure undertaking. In 1937, the Washington state government approved the project, planning for a modern suspension bridge, capable of accommodating automotive traffic. The bridge's design was spearheaded by the renowned bridge engineer, Leon Moisseiff. Moisseiff was a leading authority in suspension bridge design at the time, having contributed to iconic projects like the Golden Gate Bridge. His deflection theory proposed a lighter, more flexible bridge deck design to reduce construction costs while maintaining structural stability. At the time, this theory was celebrated as a major breakthrough in suspension bridge engineering. The bridge's design perfectly encapsulated Moisseiff's vision. With a deck width of just 11.9 meters, 39 feet, and a main span reaching 853.4 meters, 2,800 feet, it was the third longest suspension bridge in the world at the time. Compared to other suspension bridges, the Tacoma Narrows Bridge featured an exceptionally slender deck, merely 2.4 meters thick, with only 2 traffic lanes and a narrow pedestrian walkway. This design not only slashed material costs but also bestowed upon the bridge an elegant appearance, earning it the affectionate local nickname Galloping Gertie. Construction of the Tacoma Narrows Bridge commenced in November 1938, costing approximately $6.4 million, equivalent to about $120 million in 2025. Throughout the construction process, workers and engineers had already noticed slight vertical oscillations of the bridge deck in light winds. However, these movements were then considered within the normal range and did not raise significant concerns. On the 1st of July 1940, the bridge was officially opened to traffic, becoming a landmark in Washington state, the moment of collapse. However, soon after its opening, the phenomena of the bridge deck frequently vibrating in the wind became increasingly pronounced. This drew the attention of both the public and engineers. More and more people came to witness the peculiar spectacle occurring on this bridge. Engineers gradually realized that the bridge deck would experience noticeable up and down undulations under moderate wind forces. These oscillations sometimes reached amplitudes of over 1 meter, far exceeding the normal range for typical bridges. This phenomenon was humorously dubbed by locals as Galloping Gertie, because when the bridge vibrated, it seemed to come alive, as if galloping or dancing. While these vertical oscillations were unsettling, they did not immediately lead to structural damage. Thus, at the time, they were considered a normal manifestation of the bridge's flexible design. Engineers conducted preliminary studies of these vibrations and attempted to alleviate the swaying by adding dampeners and adjusting the suspension cables. But these measures had limited effectiveness. Professor Frederick Farquharson, an engineering professor at Washington State University, undertook detailed observations of the bridge's vibrations, documenting the deck's behavior at various wind speeds. He discovered that the frequency of the bridge's vibrations was closely related to wind speed. However, at the time, aerodynamic research was not advanced enough to accurately predict the consequences of these oscillations. On the morning of the 7th of November 1940, the Tacoma Narrows area experienced a strong autumn wind, a common occurrence. Throughout the morning, the wind speed gradually increased, reaching approximately 64 kilometers per h-hour, 40 miles per h-hour. Although this was not an extreme storm, such wind speeds, combined with the slender design of the Tacoma Narrows Bridge, were sufficient to trigger catastrophic consequences. Around 8:00 a.m., drivers began to notice that the bridge's vibrations were more intense than ever before. The bridge deck was not only oscillating vertically, but also starting to exhibit slight torsional twisting movements. By 10:00 a.m., the amplitude of the bridge's vibrations had significantly increased, Some sections of the roadway were heaving by more than 1.5 meters. Drivers reported that crossing the bridge felt like riding a roller coaster and the vehicles were difficult to control. Some daring drivers tried to speed across the bridge, while others chose to abandon their cars and walk to safety. At this point, the pedestrian walkways on both sides of the bridge also began to tilt dramatically, making it nearly impossible for pedestrians to stand firm. Around 10:00 a.m., the vibration pattern of the Tacoma Narrows Bridge underwent a critical change. The predominant vertical oscillation gradually transformed into a torsional oscillation. In this mode, the bridge deck no longer moved uniformly up and down, but rather twisted, with its two sides alternating between rising and falling, creating a corkscrew-like motion. Witnesses described the bridge deck as resembling a rope being wrung out. The amplitudes of the oscillations on both sides reached over 45 degrees, with some sections even approaching a vertical alignment. This torsional vibration marked the turning point towards catastrophe. It not only increased the stress on the bridge's structural elements, but also subjected the main cables and the suspenders to immense tensile forces. Professor Farquharson, who was on the bridge at the time, conducting emergency observations, attempted to record the frequency and amplitude of the vibrations with his instruments. However, the bridge's violent movements made measurements exceedingly difficult. He recalled, "The bridge seemed alive. It was twisting wildly in the air. I had never seen such a terrifying sight." As the torsional vibrations continued, the structure of the Tacoma Narrows Bridge began to show clear signs of failure. The concrete panels of the bridge deck cracked under the intense twisting. Girders and support structures emitted piercing sounds of metal tearing. The main cables and suspenders bore tensile forces exceeding their design limits. Some connection points started to loosen. Around 103:00 a.m., a critical main cable snapped under immense stress. This signaled the bridge's entry into its final phase of collapse. Ultimately, the breakage of the main cable caused the bridge to lose its primary support. The stability of the central main span rapidly deteriorated. The bridge deck began to twist with even greater amplitude, with some sections even completely overturning. Witnesses saw the asphalt roadway peel off like paper, and large chunks of concrete and steel structures broke away from the bridge, plunging into the Tacoma Narrows below. The surface of the strait erupted with enormous splashes, accompanied by deafening roars. By 110:00 a.m., the main span of the Tacoma Narrows Bridge had completely lost control. The bridge deck disintegrated entirely under the violent torsional vibrations. Sections of the central structure collapsed in a chain reaction, like falling dominoes. Cameraman Howard Clifford and Barney Elliott, risking their lives, documented this historic moment from nearby. Their footage, capturing the bridges twisting, breaking, and plunging into the strait, remains one of the most famous visual records in engineering history. In the final minutes of the collapse, most of the bridge's structure had already fallen into the strait. Only the two bridge towers and some remnants of the suspension cables remained, standing forlornly in the wind. The entire collapse process lasted approximately 1 hour, from the initial abnormal vibrations to the final structural failure, demonstrating the astonishing destructive power of aerodynamics. Fortunately, because traffic on the bridge had been closed prior to the incident, the disaster caused no human casualties, save for a single dog trapped in a car, which tragically perished. Some drivers managed to escape just before the collapse, but their vehicles remained on the bridge, eventually plummeting into the strait with the deck. Rescue personnel quickly arrived at the scene, confirmed no human injuries, and began clearing debris and assessing the damage. Lasting impact. The collapse of the Tacoma Narrows Bridge irrevocably transformed the field of bridge design. In the wake of the accident, engineers began to re-evaluate the aerodynamic characteristics of suspension bridges. Wind tunnel testing became an indispensable part of bridge design, used to simulate the effects of wind on bridges. Furthermore, the stiffness design of bridges was significantly enhanced. Many newly designed suspension bridges adopted truss structures or wider bridge decks to improve their wind resistance. While Moisseiff's deflection theory was not entirely discredited, its limitations became widely recognized. Engineers realized that bridge design required a delicate balance between cost, aesthetics, and safety, rather than an excessive pursuit of lightweight construction. After its collapse in 1940, the need for transportation across the Tacoma Narrows remained. In 1950, a new Tacoma Narrows Bridge was completed and opened to traffic. The design of the new bridge incorporated lessons from its predecessor, featuring a wider deck and stronger truss structures, capable of effectively resisting wind-induced vibrations. Additionally, wind tunnel testing played a crucial role in the new bridge's design, ensuring its safety. The new bridge remains in use today, serving as a vital transportation artery for the Tacoma area. In 2007, a parallel new bridge was constructed, further enhancing the region's traffic capacity. The design of this bridge also prioritized aerodynamic performance, embodying the highest standards of modern bridge engineering. Although the collapse of the Tacoma Narrows Bridge was a tragedy, it provided invaluable lessons for the advancement of engineering. The collapse starkly demonstrated that engineering design must be founded on robust scientific principles. While theoretical innovation is important, it must also be thoroughly validated through experimental testing, such as wind tunnel tests, and computer simulations using modern techniques. These tools provide engineers with more accurate insights. However, in the 1940s, these technologies were still nascent. As the philosopher Karl Popper once said, "We learn from our mistakes. It is through continuous reflection on such events that humanity can develop safer and more reliable bridge design methods, laying the groundwork for modern infrastructure construction." Well then, that concludes this episode. What are your thoughts on the collapse of the Tacoma Narrows Bridge? Feel free to leave your comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please remember to like, subscribe, and share. I'll see you